Electronic Organizational Self-Assessment, presented by Will Carson, Senior Pathway Program Analyst. The first step in embarking on a nursing excellence journey and creating a positive practice environment is conducting a self-assessment and gap analysis of the organizational culture. This tutorial will discuss the Electronic Organizational Self-Assessment for the 2024 Pathway to Excellence Application Manual. Specific guidance on conducting an organizational self-assessment can be found in the Pathway to Excellence Application Manual. The organizational self-assessment serves two purposes: to assess the organization's current and desired state to determine areas of strength and opportunity, and to appraise the presence or absence of the elements essential in a positive practice environment within the organization. The self-assessment must be deliberate and honest if it is to serve as an accurate measure of the gap between the organization's current and desired states. This process requires an organization to assess what is currently in place against the evidence-based elements of the ANCC Pathway to Excellence framework for creating positive practice environments. For a meaningful organizational self-assessment and gap analysis, it is recommended that nurses at all levels be included early in the process, including the chief nursing officer, nurse leaders, advanced practice nurses, direct care nurses, and nursing care assistants. Incorporating interprofessional members from the disciplines outside of nursing is also recommended. The organizational self-assessment is available in two formats. A PDF version is available for download on the Pathway website. Additionally, the Pathway Program Office has developed an electronic version of the Pathway Assessment that enables a simplified collection process of essential data to assist you in beginning your pathway journey to close gaps from the current state to the desired state. This enhanced form allows analytical capabilities to engage nurses and stakeholders at all levels to gain insight into the organization's culture in relation to the elements of the pathway standards. The electronic version of the self-assessment is available for purchase at nursingworld.org under Publications and Products. After purchasing the self-assessment tool, you'll receive an email link to a Microsoft Forms template. Click the Duplicate It button at the top right of the screen to create a version of the form for use at your organization. So after you've clicked Duplicate It, a version of the actual self-assessment will pop up and you should be able to personalize it to your organization. So if you click within these two text boxes here, you can add your organization's name. You can add any sort of contact information for troubleshooting, contact this person in that box there. You'll also see a tab for questions and responses at the top. So questions are going to be the actual items on the self-assessment. And then the responses will populate as participants complete the assessment. And they show up in the form of pie charts and then in the form of free text comments. So we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a minute. At the top, you'll also see a preview tab. So if you click preview, you'll be able to see what the self-assessment will look like from the viewpoint of a participant. So this would be if the participant was going to take the assessment on the computer versus taking it on a mobile device. You'll also see a button for style. If you wanted to go in and change the style of the survey, you can do that in that tab. There's several different options here for you to choose from, or you can just change the color. You could add a graphic, maybe a picture of your organization or your professional practice model. There's also a few more options available to you by clicking the three dots and then going down to settings. So you can set a start date for your self-assessment. So if you want your assessment to start next Monday, then you could set that time frame and go ahead and send the link out. That way, participants know that on Monday they can open up your assessment and begin it. You can also set an end date. So say you want your assessment to be open for 2 weeks, you could go in and set the end date as well. You can also customize a thank you message that populates at the end of the assessment. So if you wanted your response to say something like, "Thank you for completing our organizational assessment," uh, a message from the chief nursing officer, a message from the PPD. Any of those things you can put in this customize the thank you message. When you are ready to collect responses for your self assessment, click the Collect Responses button in the top header. This will generate a unique link for you. You can click shorten the URL if you want it to look a little bit cleaner, and then click copy link and it copies it for you. So if you wanted to just paste this directly into an email or a document, you could do that. Or you have the option to generate a QR code, which you can download and attach to any flyers, any slides. That way, that your participants can join in by using their mobile device to scan the QR code and open the self assessment anywhere where you can post or hang flyers. Now, let's go over how to look at your responses. So if you click the response tab, you can see that we had 8 responses to this self-assessment. If you scroll down, you can see how your participants answered each item in the self-assessment. So are you a nurse in a formal leadership position? You could see the majority of the participants who completed this self-assessment were in formal leadership positions. You can see that they did very well in this specific item. Does the organization foster and support a culture of interprofessional decision making? And as you go down, you can also see where free text comments were entered in. You see there's 7 responses here, and there's only 3 listed. So if you go to the top of the page, you can get a bit more detail by clicking Open in Excel. It, when you open your Excel spreadsheet, you'll see a lot of information. In the ID column, you'll see the number of responses. And then you'll also see for each assessment item what each participant answered. If you scroll over, you'll also see for each standard comments that were entered as free text. So you can see here that this participant answered, "We don't discuss well-being." This participant answered, "Shared decision making is one of the things we do best at our hospital." And there are free text comments for each area of the self-assessment. So as you scroll over, you'll be able to see all of the comments. At times, you might want to sort and filter your results to determine which responses came from nurses in leadership positions or which responses came from your direct care nurses. So to do that, you'll click the drop down arrow under the first assessment item. Are you a nurse in a formal leadership position? Once you click that drop down, you should be able to select or deselect the response options. So in this case, are you a nurse in a formal leadership position? Direct care nurses would answer no. So we wouldn't want to see any of the yes responses for the nurse leaders. So by clicking that, we can see that we had 3 responses from direct care nurses. And then as we scroll over, we are able to see the direct care nurses' responses to our self assessment here. So you can see going back to the comments section, these comments were left by your direct care nurses. Within the responses tab, there is an option as well to print a summary of all your results. So if you click this button, it will generate a printable PDF document for you with all of the results of your assessment. By clicking the ellipsis as well, you can delete all of the survey responses. So if you did an organizational assessment 1 year and then you decided you were going to repeat your organizational assessment in a subsequent year, you could delete all the responses from the form and reshare it with your staff members so that you can kind of gauge your progress over time. For questions related to the organizational self-assessment, please reach out to the Pathway Program Office by emailing pathwayinfo@ana.org.